She crashed her car on a dark, snowy road in New Hampshire. A local neighbor saw her. She was shaken but alive. He offered help. She refused. Police arrived just minutes later. But Maura Murray was gone. No footprints. No signs of struggle. Just a locked car and silence. Over 20 years later, no one knows where she went. No one knows why she left everything behind. This is one of America's most chilling disappearances. This is dark motives, real crimes, real consequences. Today's case takes us deep into one of the most baffling disappearances in U.S. history. A college student, a snowy night, a crashed car, and a mystery that still haunts investigators, family, and anyone who hears her story. This is the case of Maura Murray. Let's get into it. Maura Murray was born on May 4, 1982, in Hampshire, Massachusetts. She was the fourth of 5 children, raised in a close-knit Irish Catholic family. By all accounts, she was bright, athletic, and driven. Maura ran track in high school and later joined the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, following in her older siblings' footsteps. But after a short time, she transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. Friends described her as quiet, intelligent, and fiercely independent. She kept her circle small, but those who knew her said she was kind and focused. At the time of her disappearance in 2004, she was just 21 years old, a junior in college with a solid academic record and a plan for the future. She had a boyfriend, a supportive family, and no known enemies. But behind the surface, Maura's life was more complicated than it seemed. In the weeks before she vanished, things began to unravel. Slowly, and almost silently. On the night of February 5, 2004, Maura was working her usual shift at the security desk in her college dorm. At around 10:30 p.m., she received a phone call that left her visibly shaken. A supervisor later said she looked like she'd just gotten some really bad news. Maura began crying at her desk. When asked what was wrong, she simply replied, "My sister." But later, her sister would say she never knew of any crisis that night. After her shift, Maura walked back to her dorm and typed a strange email to her professors. She told them there had been a death in the family and that she'd be gone for a few days. There was no death. She then packed a small bag with clothes, her textbooks, some toiletries, and a few personal items. She withdrew $280 from an ATM, bought some snacks and alcohol from a liquor store, and drove off campus in her black Saturn sedan, alone. She didn't tell her friends where she was going. She didn't tell her boyfriend. She didn't tell her family. Surveillance footage captured her at the ATM and liquor store, calm, quiet, composed. But what stood out most was the lack of panic. Whatever she was planning, it didn't look like a runaway. It looked like a getaway. That night, she drove over 100 miles north toward the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Cold, isolated terrain, especially in the dead of winter. It was February 9th when she crashed. Just past 7:00 p.m., Maura lost control of her car on Route 112 in the small town of Haverhill. A local man heard the accident from his house and came outside. He saw her standing next to the car. She told him she had already called American Automobile Association. She hadn't. When police arrived less than 10 minutes later, Maura was gone. Before I tell you what police found inside her car, take a moment to subscribe if you're drawn to real-life mysteries like this one. We post daily here on Dark Motives. No dramatics, just the truth. Now, let's go deeper into what really happened that night. Police arrived on the scene at 7:46 p.m. Maura's black Saturn was up against a snowbank, damaged on the front left side. The windshield was cracked, the airbags deployed, and the car was locked. But Maura was nowhere in sight. Inside the vehicle, officers found an empty soda bottle, some snacks, and a box of wine. There was also a rag stuffed into the tailpipe, a detail that has puzzled investigators for years. Some believe it was a trick to keep the car running without being noticed. Others think it may have been done to intentionally stall the engine. There was no blood in or around the car, no signs of a struggle, No footprints in the snow. The local man who had spoken to her minutes earlier said she hadn't looked injured, just cold and maybe a little dazed. He turned his back for a moment to call 911. By the time he looked outside again, she was gone. In less than 10 minutes, Maura had vanished. Police searched the woods around the crash site that night but found nothing. No scent trail, no dropped items, not even a footprint in the fresh snow. If she had wandered off into the trees in freezing temperatures, her body should have been found nearby, but it wasn't. It never was. What happened between the moment she refused help and the moment officers arrived? And how does someone disappear that fast with no trace? The investigation into Maura Murray's disappearance began immediately, but it was slow, limited, and filled with gaps. In the hours after the crash, local police assumed Maura was intoxicated and had simply run into the woods to avoid trouble. They treated it as a walkaway, not a missing person. No one set up roadblocks. No alerts were issued. It wasn't until the next day, when Maura's car was officially listed as abandoned, that authorities began to take a closer look. When her family was contacted, they were confused and alarmed. Maura hadn't told anyone she was leaving. Her father, Fred Murray, immediately drove up from Massachusetts to help search. He became a tireless voice in the case, refusing to let it fade. The first real clue came from a local dog team trained in search and rescue. They picked up Maura's scent, but only for about 100 yards. Then it stopped, right in the middle of the road. That suggested something chilling. If she had walked farther, the dogs would have followed. But the trail ending there hinted that Maura may have gotten into another vehicle. Voluntarily, or not. Investigators began checking nearby homes, abandoned properties, and surveillance footage, but nothing turned up. There were no confirmed sightings, no fingerprints, no confirmed phone activity after the crash. The only digital trail came from her cell phone records. The last known call from her phone pinged a tower near the crash site around 7:27 p.m., just minutes before her car was found. And then, silence. No more calls, no more texts, no activity on her bank account, credit cards, or student records. Her boyfriend received a chilling voicemail in the days after she went missing. It was silent, but it sounded like someone sobbing softly. To this day, no one knows where that call came from, or who made it. Fred Murray kept pushing investigators to dig deeper. He believed his daughter had been abducted. He went door to door, handed out flyers, spoke to media, and even confronted property owners he thought were hiding something. But despite his efforts, the case went cold. No suspects, no new evidence, just a college student who vanished without a trace. As the years passed, the theories surrounding Maura Murray's disappearance grew darker and stranger. Some believed she staged her own disappearance, that she ran off to start a new life, free from pressure, family, or secrets. But if that were true, why leave her ID, money, and belongings behind? And why has there never been a confirmed sighting? Then came the rumors. A nearby property owner just a few miles from the crash site refused to let police search his land. Locals whispered that Maura had been buried there. Years later, when new owners moved in, ground-penetrating radar was brought in. They found what looked like a disturbed patch of soil in the basement. The FBI came in, cadaver dogs were brought in, but no human remains were found. The concrete was poured years after Maura went missing. Still, that detail, the disturbed ground, was enough to reignite public interest. Was she taken into that home that night? Did something happen, just out of reach from police? Even stranger, in 2021, 17 years after her disappearance, a piece of bone was found near the crash site, deep in the woods. For weeks, the public held its breath. But the DNA didn't match Maura. It wasn't her. And just like that, the hope of answers disappeared again. To this day, Maura Murray's case remains unsolved. There have been no arrests, no suspects. No trace of Maura has ever been confirmed. In 2009, 5 years after she vanished, she was officially declared dead. But for her family, especially her father, Fred, hope never fully died. He believes Maura was the victim of foul play. He's begged law enforcement to reopen old leads and re-examine the scene. Over the years, online communities have kept her story alive. Web sleuths, amateur investigators, podcasters, all trying to solve what the police couldn't. But in the end, there's no closure. Just a frozen road in the White Mountains, a crashed car, and a girl who vanished like smoke. The questions remain. Did she run? Was she taken? Or was there something no one ever saw coming? Whatever happened on that winter night in 2004, only one person knows. And Maura Murray still hasn't come home. Maura Murray was just 21 years old, a daughter, a sister, a student, and for over 2 decades, a mystery that still haunts an entire country. Her family deserves answers. Her name deserves to be remembered. If you've made it this far, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think happened that night? Did she get into someone's car? Did she choose to vanish? Or was something far more sinister at play? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you think this case should be reopened or re-examined, share this video. Maura's story deserves to be heard. If Maura's case left you speechless, wait until you hear about Marty Tankleff, the boy that found his parents brutally attacked and called 911 in shock. And just hours later, police accused him of the crime. He spent years in prison before the truth finally came out. Click the video on your screen now to hear that story. And don't forget to subscribe for more real cases, no fluff, right here on Dark Motives. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp and stay questioning.